I need a couple minutes.
All right. Well, we are live. I only say that because we got a couple comments already from people. So, hey, Harry, how's it going?
Hi, Harry.
Thanks for
Yeah,
joining.
what's happening?
And then this comment, which, I've been waiting to talk about this. The Beatles Capitol mono vinyl set. For $300 some, you get essentially eight discs. And really it's seven, 7 albums, but I think it's kind of a ripoff because like the first 7 albums, they're gonna sell them separately for like $30 each.
Yeah.
And then basically you're going to be paying an extra $100 for that 2-record Beatles story set, which is only exclusive to the box set, and then the booklet. Like, that's essentially what is driving the cost of the box set so high. So if you buy the most essential records in that set separately, you'll be saving yourself about $100.
Well, it's not only that, Jeff. It's that every Beatle box set that has come out has dropped by 50% 12 months from its release.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Let It Be box set, under $100. The Revolver box set, under $100. So if you just wait it out or buy like you said, if you don't need the Beatles story, buy them individually. It's much cheaper. That's the way to go. Save yourself some money.
Yeah, if you don't have to have it right that minute.
Yep.
Or just put it on your Christmas list and your loved ones can get it for you.
Very true. But
Hey, Trevor.
Wait till Christmas of next year.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, think about this, guys. So all these box sets that came out that were limited edition, whether it be the Rat, whether it be the Dokken, whether it be the Motley Crue, the Beatles, the only one of them that I can say positively 100% sold out was the Wasp, which they did a second pressing for. The Black Sabbath Rhino High Fidelity was selling for like $200 on eBay. Rhino reissued it. It's not numbered, but they reissued it. So, I mean, the FOMO, you got to let it go, right? And just say, I want the Beatles box set, but I'm going to wait for it to drop a year from now.
Yeah.
Spoken like a wise collector.
Yeah.
Well, most Beatle fans already have those records. Like, you may not have it in mono, but I guarantee every Beatle fan has those 7 albums. You may not have the Beatles story, depending on the level of completist that you are, but so I can probably wait it out till it drops in price, because really I'm just rebuying something, a repressing of something I already have, but it's still cool to have the box with all of it in there. I'm not gonna lie, but
so is it just the first half of them, Jeff?
Yeah, it's just the 1964 album. So basically Meet the Beatles through the early Beatles. And I'm sure, I don't know if they'll do it next year, because next year they're going to come out with the Rubber Soul.
I'm going to wait for the second half. I've got all those records. I'm waiting for the second half.
Yeah. Well, then I'm sure they'll have a complete box set at some point where they put all, 15 or however many they come up with,
One more minute, then I'll be ready. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to start a little early. That's not the topic of our conversation today, but it was a comment that I got, somebody asking about that. And then George Harrison is having a Living in the Material World deluxe set. I wonder if there'll be $1,000 version of that.
With garden gnomes? The garden gnomes?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I don't know. They're both coming out in November. Why they got to both come out at the same time? But
man, it's the Christmas rush. They're trying to get your wife's money.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I know. They and my wife will buy it for me. But I'd rather it not be a $300.
So
Is that what you do? See, like my wife and I, we haven't got each other anything for Christmas for years. We usually just, wait till after Christmas. We get ourselves something, so much easier.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
We don't even know the Black Friday Record Store Day releases, do we? Or
No, we will know it soon, though. I don't know if I'll be able to make a video. As you guys know, I'm like traveling every week in October, but
yeah, it was bummed, man, because you and I were gonna hang out in October. And...
I know, man. I'm so sorry, dude.
No, it's not. I totally understand. We'll just have to do it another time.
I know me and Chris are both turning 50. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing.
But
you guys are the babies of the group.
Yeah.
We are. We gotta attract the youngins in the vinyl community,
Yeah, you always flock to you guys.
Well, because Aaron and I are in our 50s, and Jeff is in his early 60s. So,
right. Well, we're the eye candy.
Yeah, they go for the younger, hipper demographic.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it.
The younger bald guy.
Yeah, living in the material world. You got that right, Trevor. Olivia Harrison is definitely living in the material world since she got a hold of George's catalog and started reissuing it.
Yeah, she is.
I'll tell you what, though, Jeff. What I really love is what Tom Petty's daughter is doing with his catalog. Like, Tom Petty is releasing these box sets, but like he's doing some cool things with it where there's no like tchotchkes. It's all just music. So like he's coming out with like I think a 2 LP version of Long After Dark, and it's just got like some of the tracks that didn't make the album, but they're not demos. They're like finished tracks and a couple live recordings. So to me, like spending, I think it cost me maybe $25, but to get that reissue and get the extra tracks, I think that's the way to do a catalog. If you have an estate of a legacy artist, every box set doesn't have to be super expensive. It could just be like an extra disc of some rare tracks.
I agree with you totally.
Yeah.
I think so many box sets, when you think about it, there's usually a bunch of shit on there that you'll listen to like one time.
Yeah.
Well,
and then it's going to sit there.
Yeah. Well, and I think, not to make generalizations, but I feel like Tom Petty fans are more into the quality of the product, the bonus tracks and things like that, where Beatles fans will buy any shit you put on the market.
Yeah.
You could reissue the same album 10 different times, 10 different colors under the rainbow or the vinyl, and they'll buy it up. Any little minor variation you could re-release and they'll buy it, even if they know they're getting ripped off, but they'll still buy it anyway, just because most of them like me tend to be sick completists.
Well, it's also like Kiss fans as well.
Yeah. Hey, Josh.
Yeah.
How many copies of Van Halen 1984 do you have?
At this point, I just have 2. I've got the hype sticker, which Aaron gave me, and the Japanese pressing, but I do have the cassette and vinyl, CD. So I guess at that point it would be 4 copies in total.
Gotcha.
But I have all Van Halen albums except for Van Halen 3 on at least 2 formats. So
yeah, well, you're a bit of a completist yourself there.
When it comes to Van Halen, I am.
Yeah, format completist. But all right, well, let's get into the actual topic of our live stream tonight. We've been kind of fucking around for a few minutes here just to get some stuff out of the way that I was anxious to talk about but didn't want to do a separate video for. But we're going to be talking tonight, and I call it our run of 3, which is basically we're going to show 5 of our favorite artists who released 3 consecutive classic albums. And by classic, I don't mean like, oh, they're very good albums. Like, for the most part, they're undisputed classics from start to finish. Most people consider them to be the best albums in that artist's discography, and they happen to be 3 consecutive records in their discography. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. But we have our 4 Horsemen gang, 5 Horsemen gang. However, now I feel like we got to rebrand ourselves as something. But anyway, long time since we all got together. Like, God, probably since the winter or spring.
It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
So it's good to see. Yeah, good to see all of you in the chat.
Cheers.
Hi, Harry. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about that. We're gonna start Aaron, then Gary, then Chris, then Josh, and then I'll go last. So Aaron, you want to show your first group of 3?
I've actually got 29 of them here because I was going to try to, someone pick something, have extras. But now that you've branded it like this, that's not what I was expecting. I was thinking 3 of the greatest albums they did in a row. They might not be classics to everybody, but they are to me. But you didn't explain that quite like I was thinking, but that's all right. I'll try to figure something out here that I don't think anyone's going to use first, but maybe I'm way off base. So I'm going to start with one of my favorite artists, and their first 3 albums to me are all like their 3 classics, even though they have a couple later ones that are in there with them. But you can't really, it's just the first 3 Wasp albums with the debut, and then The Last Command, and Inside the Electric Circus. For heavy metal fans of the 80s, most of them consider those 3 classic records. Their next couple were too, but especially the first 3 with the stuff like I Want to Be Somebody, Wild Child, and even their cover of, I Don't Need No Doctor on this album. And they're 2 of my 3 favorite Wasp albums are in this bunch, and probably the one of this is like my 5th. But they're 3 in a row that were all absolute classics in the heavy metal genre, the mid 80s, so early to mid 80s.
They're pretty hard to find, aren't they?
Somewhat, except for that box set. I have all original ones, but they're, you can find them. It's just I've had them for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You could actually go 4 records with them because the next one was a classic too, The Headless Children. But
Okay.
first 3 especially, I can't leave out the debut because it's just a classic by my standards.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, I can't show Wasp now. I'll have to pivot. But that's
I'm afraid I might have taken one of those guys to pick, though. I don't mean to. I was hoping I'd go last, kind of. That's cool.
Yeah.
No, I love Wasp, and I feel like, especially back in the day, Blackie had such a unique voice, but also a freaking strong voice. I mean, that guy could freaking sing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very underrated as a vocalist.
Yeah,
and I'll
nobody
tell you
really
what.
talks about him as a great vocalist, but I really feel he is one of those great heavy metal vocalists.
Not only that, Chris, I feel like Blackie has a tremendous sense of melody. Like even his newer albums, there's some catchy songs. Like he has got a fantastic ear for what is harmonious, what sounds good. Like you can put on a new Wasp album and you're like, shit, if this was released in 1985, it would be a huge hit. He's super talented. I saw him in concert last year. Still sounds awesome. Yeah, all the love to Blackie and Wasp. And I didn't pick it because I knew Aaron was going to pick it. My sixth sense told me.
And a lot of people don't listen to the new Wasp albums because I guess Blackie is born again now. And there are some religious sort of overtones and things for the album, but people don't be scared. Like, dig in. These albums are heavy. He can still sing. He can still rock and write. So I don't think it's like overtly Christian, maybe like Striper, but it's really good. It's great stuff.
I agree.
Very underrated as a songwriter too. It's just his songwriting's one of the best in the heavy metal genre. I always thought it's almost like Beatlesque at times, just how he does the catchy hooks.
Yeah. All right.
All right. What do we got here?
This is Harry and Run of 3, Red Hot Chili Peppers, self-titled, 1984. I'm not seeing 3 albums there, but
Harry's awesome. Harry lives local to me. I met him at Perch Street Records. I met his mom, met his dad. So thank you, Harry, for joining.
Yeah, I'm not. I gotta confess, I'm not really all that familiar with the Red Hot Chili Peppers early stuff. I think they had like an album called Freaky Styley or something, and all that. But you know, you could easily. I think their run of three, starting with Mother's Milk, and then the Blood Sugar Magic, and then One Hot Minute. I think was the third one or whatever.
Yep.
But yeah. All right, Gary, what do you got for us?
All right. I don't know that all of my picks do, but this particular one fits your description there. I'm going with the Pretenders. This, of course, is their debut album, one of my favorite debut albums of all time. And then it goes right into Pretenders 2, which I like this just as much, if not maybe a little bit more than I do the debut. And then, of course, they had, a big tragedy, right? James Honeyman Scott, their guitar player and a co-songwriter, and Pete Farndon, both dead. And they came back with their third album, Learning to Crawl, which is another fantastic album. And I think that Chrissie Hynde is kind of like what you guys were talking about, Blackie Lawless. Not that she doesn't get a lot of credit and everything, but as far as just her singing voice, I think she has an amazing singing voice, and she is so distinctive with that voice. And she is an amazing guitar player, great rhythm guitar player. Martin Chambers, fantastic drummer. I love his play, like Tattooed Love Boys off of this. He is a terrific drummer. And I mean, they're never going to equal the first two albums, but this was, right there with it. And just these three in a row, it's their three best albums, and it was just an amazing run. So that's my first pick, Pretenders.
Well, Pete Farndon also died before that album, didn't he? So they lost two of their original members to drugs.
Yep.
So yeah,
and I think Chrissie Hynde learned a lot from James. He was into melody and stuff. He liked different style of music than what Chrissie Hynde did, and I think she learned a lot from him songwriting wise.
He was also into heroin.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Who was?
Wilson.
Way to bring things down, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks.
Well,
Yeah.
Calling it like I see it, but I hear you. Good point. Well taken, Gary. All right, Chris.
All right, I'm going to be showcasing the Grateful Dead, and I'm probably going to go against what a lot of people think, because I'm not showing American Beauty and I'm not showing Working Man's Dead, although I love those freaking albums. I tend to go a little bit later in their career, and I'm going to show starting with Wake of the Flood.
Nice.
And this is such a great album. I feel like by this point, the Grateful Dead had ironed out exactly what they were doing. It's like, all right, let's take a little bit of blues and country. Let's take a little bit of jazz fusion, some jam band qualities, and just put it all together. This has Eyes of the World, which was a huge live hit for them. But it's also got Bob Weir's Weather Report Suite, which is sort of proggy. Such a great album. I also love the cover of that. Following that was, at times, this is my favorite Dead album, From the Mars Hotel.
Nice.
It has a lot of cool deep tracks on it as well. Like, I love the song U.S. Blues. But this also has Scarlet Begonias. Unbroken Chain is really cool. Money, Money Rocks. And then after that, Blues for Allah. Where, it's got the classic Franklin's Tower. And what I love about this album, The Music Never Stopped is great. Crazy Fingers is a cool ballad. But this was where they started to showcase, maybe not started, but some of these songs sort of go right into each other, kind of like the early Moody Blues album. So you get that sense of what the Dead sounded like live. And a lot of people say, "Oh, I only listen to the Grateful Dead live records." Well, me personally, I listen to the studio albums. I love the studio albums. I like the live Dead as well. But for me, these three mid-'70s records are killer.
Well, I'm going to go on record and say the Grateful Dead have some of my favorite album artwork of any artist. I mean, name me a bad Grateful Dead cover not named Go to Heaven.
How about Built to Last?
You know, I don't know. They just have a certain style, like a very kind of like a pop art. I don't know. Maybe that's not the right word for it, but I mean, from their first cover all the way through, you know, their final album, there's just something very cool. I mean, they didn't just, you know, toss some photo or, you know, some tacky piece of artwork on their records. I mean, I consider most of their album covers to be iconic.
And
Yeah,
the Grateful Dead are just one of those bands that get shit on. It's, you know, it's the joke of like, well, once my high wore off, I realized the Grateful Dead suck. Like, I mean,
My head's always wore off.
listen, if you like music, like you're gonna like at least something from the Grateful Dead. I mean, they cover so many genres that there's got to be at least a couple tunes you like by the Dead.
Well, I will say when you guys were talking about the artwork, I know when I was like a sophomore, you know, I'd seen all the, you know, people having the shirts of it and stuff, and I had a friend had it, and I'm like, oh man, wonder what these guys sound like. And then when I listened to that first record, I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, it's
The balls of them to put that shit on their album cover and make me think it's some kind of heavy metal record, and then it's a bunch of old hippies singing.
Yeah, it's kind of like Molly Hatchet, right? You know,
Yeah.
Exactly.
bought a Molly Hatchet album thinking that was going to be total heavy metal, and then you're like, oh fuck,
No,
At least Molly rocks.
yeah.
I get it though. I mean, with Grateful Dead,
so
you know, they're,
I know
that's
Josh.
this is
Josh likes
15-year-old me talking.
Yeah, I love the Dead. I'm with Chris. I love those albums, Chris. They're such good ones, and you're absolutely right. You know, even though American Beauty and Workman's Dead is definitely the most appealing to a mass audience because it almost has that Neil Young Harvest type of feel.
Yeah.
Those three Dead albums that you chose are really represent the Dead, I think, more accurately.
So Gary, you don't like the Dead?
When I turn 60, I will go buy a Grateful Dead record, and maybe I'll be old enough at that point and mellow enough that I can appreciate it.
Okay.
So, all right, Aaron, do you like the Dead?
Can't stand them.
All right, Jeff, do you like the Dead?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I'm a Dead fan. I'm not a Dead head, but I do like everything. You know, I got about 10 Grateful Dead albums, I think. So
Yeah.
I say,
A lot of it's personal for me. It was my stepmother's favorite band, and I never got along with her, so I think that has a lot to do with that. 'Cause every
Damn
time
you,
I
stepmother.
think of her.
ah,
So I
Hey,
just didn't know.
And
hey, I just want to give a shout out to Morton, everybody's favorite
Yeah.
Norwegian. He's here.
Morton,
Morton.
good to see you.
And Harry brings up the Rolling Stones, which I don't know if anybody's going to show the Stones, but those Jimmy Miller, that's a run of like 4 great albums right there.
Yeah.
You could pick
Yeah,
any
easy.
3 out of that run right there. And Trevor's not a Grateful Dead fan. Boo!
That's not shocking. That's not shocking, Trevor.
Yeah. All right. Well, you can't please everybody. No, I get it. I get it. Like Grateful Dead, you know, they're an acquired taste.
Definitely.
You know,
It's
you're
nothing
not-
against Chris, because Chris has great taste in music. It has to do with the other.
Oh yeah.
person.
Well, you know, we all have those things, right? You know, I mean,
Yep.
Chris and I love Dwight Yoakam. I kind of doubt that Aaron's going and buying anything by him. So
no.
I'll watch it for you guys.
Well, it's like when I did my Porter Wagner video. I think like 3 people watched it.
I watched it. I thought it was interesting.
I like those. I you know, they may not be your videos that get the most views, but I like seeing a discography of an artist I'm really not familiar with.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, anybody can show Fleetwood Mac, my record Fleetwood Mac collection, or my Van Halen collection, but you know, I don't know shit about Porter Wagoner. I've never seen 99% of those. So I'm not kidding around here. Like I really do like those videos, or you know. But
One cool thing is,
like Mock, I know I kind of like fucked around with a couple of his album covers as a joke, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Josh, what do you got?
okay, so my pick is definitely a unique voice, much like how Gary, had talked about the Pretenders and Chrissy Hynde's voice. So this voice is extremely unique. I got into this artist. My dad was a fan of outlaw country, especially Willie Nelson. He loved Willie Nelson. But I got into a band called Social Distortion, and they championed this artist. So I got into Johnny Cash very young. Johnny Cash fan, thanks to Social Distortion. And I heard he was coming out with an album, and I heard it was produced by Rick Rubin. And I heard that Glenn Danzig was writing a song for him. So I had to go get it. I got it day one, American Recordings. This finished in the top 5 of almost every music magazine's best albums of the year. Johnny Cash was at a crossroads in his life. Rick Rubin said, there's your guitar, there's the mic, just sing songs that you like and we'll record them. And the album is an absolute masterpiece. Then Rick Rubin had the fantastic idea of calling up Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and said, how would you like to be Johnny Cash's backing band? Tom Petty actually played bass on every song on this album. Tom Petty says this is the most Heartbreaker album, Tom Petty Heartbreaker album, that doesn't have Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers listed on the title. And that's American Recordings too, another stone cold masterpiece. All of these albums were highly regarded and considered some of the best of Johnny Cash's career. He follows it up with American 3. Now, by the time he gets to American 3, you can slowly start hearing the decline in these albums, but that's not in the quality, but in his voice and in his health. And that's kind of the charm. This man not only was slowly dying, his wife was slowly dying, and it was all leading to what became American 4, which is considered his greatest album. So even though I'm not showing American 4, and even though I love his 70s albums, I'm going to say I went with this run of 3 because this introduced him to a whole new generation of people that didn't listen to country music, and revitalized his career, and got him the critical acclaim that he deserved. He's the GOAT. You know, he's just one of the greatest. That's my pick.
It got both of my sons interested in it, and my youngest son, he was in a whatever you call it, not a choir, but a show choir kind of thing. And when they do their shows at the end of the year, they can pick a solo song like the seniors can or the juniors can. And he did a Johnny Cash song 2 years in a row, and he did it with like people playing behind him and stuff, and it was like one of the best things that they did that whole show. People loved it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I almost showed Johnny Cash, so I'm glad that you did, Josh. And my favorite out of the ones you showed the first one. I freaking love that album, and it's, for me, Rick Rubin's produced a lot of freaking albums. I would say that first Johnny Cash album could be one of the best that he's ever produced, for the sheer fact, like you said, he brought Johnny back to his roots.
Right.
Yeah. Amazing stuff. Great one. Great pick.
Thank you.
Hey, Sam St. John.
Sammy St. John.
Buddy.
Sam likes Johnny Cash.
Of course.
Man, the VC.
Yep.
All right. Morton, 4 where he covers Depeche Mode.
I think so.
Personal Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Morton, if you're talking Depeche Mode, I really thought about like Black Celebration, Music for the Masses, and Violator, like as a run of 3, but I don't know. It's kind of like Music for the Masses was sort of the weak link. in that 3-record run. I love it, but I don't know that Music for the Masses is like, a masterpiece or a classic album. But anyway, yeah, I love all Depeche Mode albums, obviously.
Yeah, but doesn't Music for the Masses have Little 15 on it?
It's got Little 15, yeah, Never Let Me Down Again, Strange Love, Behind the Wheel. Some of their biggest hits are on that record. So that would be, if I were to do a Depeche Mode run of 3, it would be those 3 right there.
Yeah,
easily. All right, so I'm next. My run of 3 is going to be a band that started in my hometown heroes, and I'm talking about the Stooges.
Nice.
And I mean, there's no disputing their first 3 albums are stone cold classics. Their debut, their next album, Funhouse, and then their third album, where it's technically Iggy and the Stooges, Raw Power, but it's garage rock, acid rock. It's just like no bullshit rock and roll. And I love Iggy Pop. I love that raw stuff that you get on those records. I mean, obviously with the first one, 1969 is great. I Want to Be Your Dog is a classic. And then it just seems like I actually like their second album, Funhouse, even better than the first one. And then Raw Power, actually, David Bowie took a stab at producing it. And there's like different mixes of that because Iggy Pop wasn't happy with the original. But, it's almost like garage rock / the birth of punk rock in some ways. They and the MC5 were huge. Grande Ballroom was a big venue where a lot of those bands really got their start and became legendary. But that's my run of 3.
That's awesome.
Those are great.
Funhouse is my favorite. Especially the song Dirt. That's my favorite song by them easily.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a great one. Depeche Mode actually covered, speaking of Depeche Mode, as a B-side, they covered Dirt. I forget what song that was the B-side of, but anyway.
Well, you ever heard Joan Jett's version of I Want to Be Your Dog?
I don't think I've heard that.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The other thing too is when David Bowie takes you under his wing, you got something.
Exactly. Yeah, him and Lou Reed were kind of he kind of mentored them.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron, your next run.
Well, I'm afraid I'm going to be picking someone's pick here. I'm not sure, but I gotta do it. One of my favorite bands. They were my favorite band at one point in my life, and I'm going with ZZ Top, starting with Rio Grande Mud, their second album, which is my favorite, and then continuing on with Tres Hombres, and finishing out with Fandango.
Yeah,
I think those are their 3 best records. All of the great 70s hits, most of them were on those 3. But I mean, I like all their stuff, especially Rio Grande Mud is very underrated. It's Just Got Paid and Francine were the big hits, but like everything on here is good. On all 3 of the records, they're just solid all the way through. And on Tres Hombres, Precious and Grace Clutch even covered, which is really cool. So, and LaGrange and Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers, all that. And then Fandango's Half Live, and then the studio side is maybe the best side they've ever did, studio-wise, with Nasty Dogs and Funky Kings, Blue Jean Blues, Balinese, Mexican Blackbird, Hurt on the X, and then finishing with Tush. So that's just they're all, I don't know how you can't consider those classics. They're, to me, the three best records they did, and I like the first one and Eliminator coming up right behind them.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would really argue with you probably with that pick.
Yeah, those are fantastic albums. I know I said it on a video recently, but I really thank Aaron because I was into ZZ Top as a kid, with those 80s albums. And because of Aaron's videos, I really dove into their early catalog, and that's my favorite now. Like, I just love 70s ZZ Top. Like, I'm obsessed. And so I think those 3 albums probably are my favorite. But I do love the first album. I love that song Brown Sugar. I mean, that song might be my favorite ZZ Top song, even though you're right, those other 3 albums are probably their best.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna put the first one, but I just couldn't leave Fandango out.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's hard for me to leave it off. It was really. I was thinking the first 3, but I went with the 2, 3, and 4. So.
Yeah, I gotta thank Aaron too for turning me on to early ZZ Top, because like you, Josh, I knew the '80s stuff, but when I found this last week and picked it up, I actually texted Aaron this week and said, I can see why this is your favorite album. It was almost like I listened to it and I was like, oh, now I get it. This all makes sense now.
Yeah.
So it's such a killer record.
Yeah, every song is fantastic.
Yeah, it's just a perfect combination of blues and rock.
Yeah.
Together. But the thing is, you know, us building up those albums doesn't take anything away from those 80s albums, because
right.
I think those are great too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really do. It's just a different phase is all, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
Depeche Mode, they actually helped transform ZZ Top sound in the 80s. They went and saw a show, and that's when they started integrating the synths, because they liked how Depeche Mode was using the synthesizers. It's kind of a strange connection with them.
Yeah. Huh.
So cool.
Did they cover People Are People?
They didn't cover it. They just used they were amazed at how the synths had so much power in them. So they kind of adopted that into Eliminator, Afterburner, starting with Del Loco, I think, and they kind of like transformed their sound.
That was actually OMD, Aaron. OMD was on Top of the Pops when at the same show that ZZ Top was on.
That was? I thought it was Depeche Mode.
Yeah, it was OMD, and ZZ Top was like, holy crap, like it sort of opened their eyes to, oh, there's another direction we can take our music in. But I mean, you could almost take any 3 ZZ Top albums and do a run of 3, because they do not have a bad album.
El Loco is really good, but it's got a couple weaker tracks on it. But other than that, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
All right. For my picks, probably a lot of people, now that I think of it, would probably disagree with the 3 that I'm picking, the 3 run. Maybe Chris might agree with me, but I am going with Rush, and I'm starting with Caress of Steel, which, if it wasn't for Caress of Steel, they never would have made, fall now, 2112. I can't get this on camera here. And then, of course, that leads right into my favorite Rush album of all time, Farewell to Kings. And to me, this is just, I mean, I could have done different 3 runs. I was really trying to, because I would have liked to have Permanent Waves on this, but I like, Caress of Steel more than I do Hemispheres. And, I wanted to get 2112 in there. So this is the 3 run that I went. And of course, this is the album. The record company said, hey, quit making records like this, where you're doing all these long ass songs. Let's make some short songs so we can sell some more records. And they said, fuck you. And they did 2112, which, one song takes up the entire side of an album. And it is great. This thing, I could put this on now. You give me a couple beers, I'm running around the room screaming these songs out, trying to sound like Geddy Lee. And then this is just perfection. I mean, Jesus. Xanadu, Farewell to King, Cygnus X1. Those are like some of Rush's best work ever. And thank you, Josh, for giving me the better copy.
You're welcome.
This is not my original copy. This is the one that Josh gave me. So I gladly took that upgrade on that. So that's my 3 runs is Rush, Caress of Steel, 2112, and Farewell to Kings.
Well, it's very interesting, Gary, because I'm going to be showing Rush later on, but I'm not showing any of those albums. But all 3 of those albums are classics. I mean, you think about Caress of Steel, it's got Bastille Day on it.
Yeah.
Which is such a great song. And it's funny because I posted a picture of Caress of Steel this past week. So many people said such an underrated album.
Yeah, it's got the Necromancer on there, which is great.
Yeah,
I mean,
and then, of course, 2112, like you showed, classic. A Farewell to Kings was my favorite Rush album for a long time. I love Closer to the Heart. Like you said, Cinderella Man, such a great album.
Yeah, Kevin, I would go with you. You know, for me, I think if I were to do a Rush run of 3, I would probably start with Farewell to Kings, then Hemispheres, and then Permanent Waves. Permanent Waves is my favorite Rush album, but I love that. I feel like Hemispheres and A Farewell to King are like sister albums, just because, I mean, not just because you have that Cygnus, you know, the two versions of the Cygnus that kind of tie those together, but you know, Rush is another band. You could pick any 3 in their 70s or 80s, you know, catalog, and people would agree with you on that.
I love that very first Rush album. It's just a hard rocking album, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So anyway, here we go.
Well, I was going to show my Rush later, but I guess I'll show it right now. And I'm sure you guys probably can guess which ones I'm going to show, but I'm going to start with Permanent Waves. I love this freaking album. I mean, Spirit of the Radio's on here, Free Will. Plus, you get the progginess of Natural Science on side 2.
Love
Such a killer record. I got to go Moving Pictures. I know it's sort of an obvious choice, but classic album, Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetto, YYZ, Limelight, and Vital Signs, and you've got the 2 deeper cuts, The Camera Eye and Witch Hunt, are amazing. And this is slowly becoming one of my favorite albums by Rush for the sheer fact of Subdivisions. Subdivisions is such a killer track. So I'm going Permanent Waves, Moving Pictures, and then Signals.
Oh, to say one of those had my favorite Rush song on it, the YYZ.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Geddy Lee's not singing.
But you're right, Jeff. I mean, you could probably pick any 3 Rush albums and put them in order of 3, and you'd get classics.
Yeah, Rush really had like a run of 12, you know, if we were to do an episode like that. I mean, I know Aaron would, you know, probably feel differently, but.
Well, and also cover art. You were talking about cover art before, Jeff. I mean, Rush had some pretty killer.
Yeah, well, Hugh Simon, you know, no 2 Rush covers look the same, but it's the same. They had the same graphic artist for every, I think, Rush album since, I don't remember. Did he do the first album cover, or did it start with Fly By Night?
I think it started with Fly By Night.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
That's
All
the
right.
best.
So, Gary, what do you? I mean, you're a big time Rush fan. Do you like Signals?
I do. I like Signals. Signals was probably the last Rush album that I really loved for many years.
Yeah.
Now, after that, you know, Power Windows, I thought was just so watered down and dull.
Yeah.
And then they just, you know, Hold Your Fire was okay.
And what do you feel about the one everybody knows, Moving Pictures?
I like it.
Yeah,
I really do. But I'm the one guy. I'm that asshole that, you know, sounded like he was being Mr. Cool, because like when that album came out when I was in high school, of course, everybody all of a sudden loved Rush. You know, oh, I love this Rush band. They sing Tom Sawyer and everything, and I'm like, I love the album, but you know, I would say, well, yeah, I really like it. I go, I don't like it as well as their last album, you know, Permanent Waves, and I definitely don't like it as much as I did like some of the albums before that. But It's still really cool. Of course, everybody's like, what? This is their best album. I go, dude, you don't even know any of their other albums, so you know, maybe I got a little chip on my shoulder from that. But I love it. I do love it. It's a great album. I totally get it, but it's just not my favorite. All.
Yeah, well, Moving Pictures was a gateway for a lot of people to get into Rush. If they hadn't heard Tom Sawyer or Limelight, they probably never would have explored Rush beyond.
Yeah, and those are great songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got another Clutch fan here, Aaron, with Kevin. Kevin's favorite band is Rush, and
I'm thinking about using Clutch, but it's a Rush. It's a run of their whole discography. They don't have a weak track on any other album, so it's hard for me to pick 3.
mm-hmm.
I might do it though. I got 29 different groupings here.
Well, guys, my next pick was like extremely difficult because there were 2 runs of 3 albums, and my heart told me to pick a different run than I picked, and I'll explain why. And even though the first run of albums, and I'm talking about Tom Petty, the first run of albums with Damn the Torpedoes and Hard Promises and Long After Dark is probably considered his best run of albums. And I wouldn't blame anybody. Man, Damn the Torpedoes is easily in my top 1 best albums of all time. But the reason why I chose Full Moon Fever, Into the Great Wide Open, and Wildflowers was because in the late 80s, Let Me Up, I've Had Enough came out, and it only went gold, which a lot of Tom Petty's albums had gone platinum. He was kind of at a crossroads in his career. When he met the Traveling Wilburys and met Jeff Lynne and made this album. And what I think is great about this album is a lot of his peers from the 70s really were moving to adult contemporary, like the Glenn Frys of the world and the Stevie Nicks of the world. They were making, music that wasn't necessarily appealing to young kids. And this album came out and had massive MTV hits that resonated with his older fans from the 70s and the younger generation. He tried to do the same thing with Into the Great Wide Open, and I love this album. It's got Learning to Fly and the title track and some fantastic songs. It maybe didn't have the magic of Full Moon Fever, and I think Tom Petty realized that, even though it was a platinum selling album, and then totally changed the game and went with Wildflowers, which is arguably, I think, his greatest work. It's dark, it's subdued, it's just everything I love about music. So yeah, 3 albums that totally changed the trajectory of his career. And when I went and saw him live, it was the most diverse crowd I've ever seen. There were so many young children, so many teenagers, so many old men, and everybody loved Tom Petty. And that 3 run of albums changed, I think, his career trajectory. And he opened up a brand new audience to a younger generation. That being said, Damn the Torpedoes, Hard Promises, Long After Dark are 3 masterpieces. And I desperately wanted to pick those. But instead I went with these 3.
All amazing choices. Wildflowers is my favorite Petty album. I had Into the Great Wide Open on cassette as a kid. I freaking wore that cassette out. And then, of course, Full Moon Fever with Free Fallin'. Free Fallin' has become a standard. If people made albums of standards like, Willie Nelson's Stardust or something like that, like Free Fallin' is a freaking standard.
Yeah. Not to mention I Won't Back Down, iconic. And the great thing about I Won't Back Down is Tom Petty really freaking meant it. You know what I mean? Like, that guy never gave an inch. Yeah, I mean, I know Gary loves Tom Petty.
Where does Southern Accents rank for you?
Oh, it's very high. I think it's a masterpiece. Also, I think Wildflowers, Damn the Torpedoes, Southern Accents, man, those 3 albums, hard to beat.
Yeah.
See, Josh knows I like Tom Petty because he got to hear me singing on the Hard Promises record, him and Jeff.
Yeah.
A little bit tipsy.
That's an enduring memory, Gary.
Yeah.
Hey,
There
Alex,
you go.
good to see Alex.
Alex with a
Yes.
great channel name.
Yeah.
Did we lose Aaron?
And in honor of Alex, I think some of us are
Alex,
inviting.
Yeah, I don't know where Aaron went.
Ghost Rider.
Is he backstage, Jeff?
What'd you say?
Is Aaron backstage?
Oh yeah, sorry. My screen will only show the 4 people at a
Poor
time.
guy. There he is.
Just in time to give your picks. But I want to give a special shout out to Alex, because what I love about his channel is not only does he talk about great records and great music, he talks about great beer. Like some of us show like whatever we're drinking on our videos, but he actually takes the time to talk about this is what an IPA is. This is what a pale ale is. This is what differentiates a hazy IPA from a, it's like, wow, I thought I knew everything about beer. And now I feel like I'm getting schooled because he knows,
Yeah.
he takes the time to actually, it's like, what I'd love to see is this beer would be great paired with this album, kind of like a thing like that. But
Well, he also taught me about acronyms.
Very true.
Yeah. I love that when he did that.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, Chris loves Dave Matthews Band. He might even show it in this episode.
No, I don't. I'm not going to show any Dave Matthews.
Alex is a professional. He's like, I always smell. I get a new beer, I smell it first before I drink it.
Yeah.
Like
Nothing
a
wrong
wine.
with that. All right, Aaron, I think you jumped in just in time.
Yeah, my
You didn't
volume
go,
totally.
Jeff.
I didn't hear what was going on, so I had to get out and get back in, and it went back to normal. When it glitched that last time, it totally.
I thought it was Jeff's turn.
It is. Jeff, you didn't go.
What was Aaron? Did you show your second one?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was first.
He starts it out, remember?
Yeah. The order is different now because Aaron left.
Yeah.
So it goes Jeff, then
I
Aaron.
messed up because he kept dropping out, and now I lost mine. All right. Anyway, I'm ready to go. Here we go.
Do it.
So anyway, another band that Aaron's gonna hate, but I'm gonna show a run of 3 of anyway. The Who, starting with Tommy, and then who's next? I'll tell you who's next. Quadrophenia is next. You like that? 2 double albums and a run of 3. I mean, Pete Townsend is so funny because I wasn't around in the 60s because I wasn't born until 1980, but I can't imagine being there in the 60s and that Who band. They had a couple runs of singles, but they were more a singles band up until Tommy. And then Tommy came out and just kind of blew everyone's mind because it was a concept album, a rock opera. You had some of the Who's most enduring hits on that album, from Pinball Wizard, We're Not Gonna Take It, I'm Free. And then they followed that up with Who's Next, one of the greatest albums of the 1970s. And then Quadrophenia, another rock opera double album. Some of the Who's most classic hits, 515, Love Reign O'er Me, Punk and the Godfather. I mean, what an incredible run of albums. The Who's a band that kind of they didn't put out a lot of albums, and there's some albums you could argue are very spotty, but there's no denying, unless your name's Aaron, that Who's Next and Quadrophenia are some of the greatest albums of the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, it's incredible that they put out that quality of work in that time period there.
Yeah, it's just staggering because their first 2 albums, they're like, okay. I mean, the first album, it's just a lot of R&B. It's like the Rolling Stones' first album. It's a lot of R&B covers, James Brown covers, some blues stuff thrown in there, a couple Townsend originals, which are not classics by any means. And then the second album, it's like, oh, we got a quick one while he's away. It's their first kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, but like art rock or into that whole, we've got a suite now. We've taken up most of the side of an album with this multi-faceted song. And then the Who Sell Out was really their first concept album. It's not really a rock opera, but it's not as solid, anywhere near as solid as Tommy or Who's Next or Quadrophenia. But anyway, I'm going to go on and on if somebody doesn't cut me off and say, okay, it's my turn now.
You're doing a
Great
great
pick,
job,
dude.
Jeff.
The Batman song is my favorite one by them for sure. That one is Squeezebox.
Yeah, see, Morton likes the Who.
Yeah.
Poison actually covered Squeezebox.
They did.
Did they? No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, on their Hollyweird album.
I hope they didn't do it as bad as they did Rock and Roll All Night. They destroyed that song. I can't listen to them do it. I like Poison, but I can't stand how they do Rock and Roll All Night. It drives me nuts.
They did a good job of We're an American Band.
Yeah. They should have stayed away from Kiss.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, should I show like more popular stuff or more obscure stuff? What do you
Whatever
guys
you want, dude.
Whatever you want, Aaron.
I don't want to.
Aaron.
I'm not messing around anymore. I'm going to go for my favorite. Well, one of my favorites. It's my turn, right?
Yeah.
So this is hard to beat this string of 3 records in the 70s, except for by another band, which I might show later. And I'm probably using someone else's pick there, but I'm not messing around anymore. I got to go with In Rock from Deep Purple.
Yeah.
Followed by Fireball and Machine Head.
Yeah.
All 3 are just phenomenal. I love all 3 of them. And I think they don't get the recognition they deserve as being some of the pioneers of heavy metal, like Led Zeppelin or Black Sabbath always get all the, but I think they did more for heavy metal than those other bands, even Black Sabbath, because they did so many different styles. They almost had a progressive style to them. It's a heavy in your face style, kind of a bluesy style. And Black Sabbath, while influential, was just kind of a doom sound, and they're all great. They're killer. But I think Deep Purple was much more innovative. And it's, stuff like Child in Time, even though that was partially taken from another song. But, this whole album here is just unbelievably ahead of its time in rock. And, everything on it, it's just amazing. And then you get Fireball. And I know, Chris, you're one of the only people with me that loves Anyone's Daughter. I think that's an amazing song. It's just totally off the wall for them. It doesn't sound like the rest of the album, and it's so good. And
I love Anyone's Daughter.
Yeah, it's great. And then Fireball, it's like one of the first speed metal songs. That and Speed King are both like speed metal. You got the progressive stuff, like they don't. What the hell? I mean, there's just, and then of course you got Machine Head with Smoke on the Water, but that's not even my favorite on there. I like Highway Star, and
Pictures
it's
of
just 3 unbeatable records there for the early 70s, as far as I'm concerned. I actually like them better than Black Sabbath, but I love Black Sabbath too. But I think Deep Purple, those 3 albums especially, were monsters and don't get the recognition they deserve, like I said, even though they're classics.
I'm so glad you showed those though, and when you show them in order, you can see why Fireball kind of got forgotten because that's terrible English, whatever. But Deep Purple and Rock, just freaking heavy in your face, and then Machine Head, which is greatest hits all over it, and then there's that little album Fireball in the middle. But Fireball is so good.
There's times my favorite. Oh, I don't know. In Rock and Fireball are my 2 favorites.
Yeah, Fireball. I may be in the minority here, but that's probably my favorite out of that run of 3, just because it's so different from the album that bookended. But I love that. Hi, Harry. By the way, Harry is leaving. Thank you for joining.
Hey, Harry.
Thanks, buddy.
Hey, no one came almost has a grunge sound to it, like early, like almost like what the grunge kind of copied in a way, just that dirty. It has a grungy sound to me. I don't know why. I always thought that No One Came is almost like a grunge song, but it's just phenomenal what they put out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Richie Blackmore, amazing on the guitar. Ian Pace, one of the most underrated drummers in history. He's great.
He's fantastic. Yeah. It's good that you did those albums. Those albums needed to be on there. That's a great run for sure.
I was afraid someone else was going to pick them. That's why I have a group 29 groupings here. So.
All right. So my next run of 3 is one of my favorite bands. I know Jeff likes them a little bit, but I'm going with Blondie, and I am starting with Parallel Lines. So I'm not going to talk as much because, I don't want to slow us down too much, but you got Frank Infante, Nigel Harrison, Clem Burke, Jimmy Destry, Chris Stein, and Debbie Harry. I'm doing that because to me, Blondie is a band. They've always been a band. Everybody always thinks that Blondie is just Debbie Harry, and that is so far from the truth. These guys all contributed to these songs. They were all songwriters. They were all fantastic musicians. Clem Burke is one of my favorite drummers of all time. Chris Stein is an amazing songwriter, very inventive. And, it starts off with this one. It goes to Eat to the Beat, which Jeff did a special on. And then, of course, it goes to Auto American, which, I realize, this is the one that had Rapture and The Tide is High on it, which were huge hits for him. Not my favorite songs off of this album, but they do have, Rapture was like the first #1 rap song because of the rap part in it. You might think, well, that's ridiculous nowadays, but that's just true. That's a fact. Blondie were very innovative. They were a new wave band. They added all kinds of different sounds into their music. And these 3 albums, to me, I listened to them front to back. They're fantastic albums. Late 70s, early 80s, new wave. Love it. So there you go. That's my next pick was one.
Excellent choice there.
Great one.
Nice. All right. Well, this choice is not going to be popular with Aaron, but
Poor Aaron.
and it's not the Monkees, but it's Monkees related, and I got to talk about my man Michael Nesmith and his first 3 post-Monkees albums. Well, all right, so he started with Magnetic South, and he demoed a lot of these tunes with the Monkees, but this had Listen to the Band on it, 9 Times Blue, the hit Joanne. He followed that with another, in my mind, classic album called Loose Salutes.
That's my favorite out of those 3.
And all these 3 albums are sort of tied together, not just by artwork, but by sound, by musicianship. And then the third out of the series, Nevada Fighter. Now, let me talk about Nesmith for a second, because I don't understand why he is not more well-known and he's not given more accolades. Like, the guy was one of the, and he started when he was in the Monkees, a pioneer of country rock. A lot of people say, they point to the Eagles, which I get. They'll point to the Byrds album, Sweethearts of the Rodeo with Graham Parsons, which I get as well. People will point to Neil Young. Again, amazing artist. But Michael Nesmith's got to be put into that mix. These are country rock albums when country rock really wasn't, it was just forming. Plus, it's got the pedal steel player. His name is O.J. Red Rhodes, a phenomenal pedal steel player. And it's just, don't be thrown off by the term country. I think Nesmith called it cosmic country, but these 3 albums, in my mind, some of the greatest in country rock.
Yeah, and the thing about it, it was country rock, but it also had like a little bit of psychedelic touches in there, which was really weird. Those albums are very strange. I think they're so unique, but I enjoy listening to them.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike.
So, I don't know.
Hey,
probably,
MGK.
What were you going to say, Gary?
Nothing, just that I love, that's a great pick. I love those albums. Those are great.
Sorry, Aaron.
Oh, that's fine. I respect him. I don't listen to him, but I can respect his talent.
Yeah.
So, guys, my next pick, in 1974, a band decided to release their first album, which could be called Greatest Hits, and that is Mr. Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, Ace Frehley, Peter Criss. And when that album didn't sell, they followed it up with another Greatest Hits called Hotter Than Hell. And when that album didn't sell, they followed up with another Greatest Hits, Dressed to Kill. Now, I know there's a lot of Kiss haters out there, and in the last year, I have blocked 50 people plus who have hated on my Kiss reels. All of you can kiss my white ass, because I think these 3 albums are all killer, no filler. And because I blocked you, you can't comment on my channel. I'm realizing now we're on Jeff's channel and you probably can comment down below. But I love all of these albums. To me, and if any of you have these albums, you could talk more. I won't talk in great detail about them, but I absolutely love these 3 albums. They are 3 of my favorite albums of all time. And to me, they're all greatest hits. So
What's your favorite out of the 3?
it changes weekly. I would say right now it's Harder Than Hell. But the first album has my favorite song, Black Diamond.
Yeah.
What about you, Gary?
Hotter Than Hell, but I mean, I love all 3 of those. All 3 of those records to me are 5-star records. I love them.
Obviously,
why-
when I was talking about when there was another '70s band, they might have a better record.
And you know, we've talked about Kiss before. Well, I don't understand the hate either, Josh. Like,
Yeah.
I love those first 3 albums, and people will say it was the makeup, it was the stage show. Okay,
Yeah.
well, yeah, that was part of Kiss, but listen to those first 3 albums. Those songs are so well written, and if you like '70s rock and roll,
Yep.
there is no reason that you should not like those albums.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of the same thing with the Monkees. People just, for Monkees fans, people don't give Monkees any chance just because of their image in the TV show. Kiss had the same thing with the makeup. It's very similar.
Yeah.
Except for actually,
That's a good analogy.
Well, you could have actually shown a live too, because that's a studio record as well. But
Yeah,
really?
and it's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I love Kiss. So
Hey, man, you think about Destroyer, and Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun. You could go with
You could've
those
done that
3.
easy.
what
Yeah.
about Dynasty, Unmasked, and freaking
The Elder.
I love
Yep.
the album.
I'm still
Creatures
mad
of the
that my
Night,
Elder
Lick
video-
It Up. Fun.
I'm extremely mad my Elder video got blocked because that was my best Tipsy Tuesday I did, and it was the only one that was blocked worldwide.
great choice, Josh.
Thank you, Jeff. It's
No
all you,
kiss.
brother.
No kissing time. You can't be a real.
Got it. I just,
You don't have the debut without kissing time on it. Love Gun. Yeah, that's another one. I mean, you could easily pick Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun
Yeah.
as your 3 as well. But
uh-huh.
Love Gun is my favorite Kiss album.
It's a great one.
It's my favorite pickup line.
Yeah. Well,
Baby, you
Well-
just pulled the trigger of my.
You know, you could even pick these 3 in a row too. I mean, you could really.
Oh,
do
yeah,
that.
you could.
you know, well,
I'm not doing
Gary,
it. But you could.
Gary, you know what my pickup line is?
What?
Do you want to see my plaster caster?
At least it wasn't from Christine 16. You weren't quoting that or something.
Yeah.
I still remember when they were talking about that on the Oprah Winfrey show, talking about Plaster Caster. That was hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
well, if Kiss is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I don't trust anybody who doesn't like Kiss.
All right, who we got? Josh?
No, just win. It's you, Jeff.
You
Oh,
guys keep moving me.
well, shit. I can't keep. You guys keep shuffling around. Fuck.
All right, how is Jeff gonna follow Kiss? Let's see.
I'll show you how I'm going to follow Kiss, Chris.
Probably with some
Musically
keyboard.
obsessed. You motherfucker. I'm going to show
Oh,
Pink
yeah.
Floyd, God damn it.
Yeah.
I'm going to show some. How about get a load of this? Dark
Oh.
Night of the Moon.
You've got the big guns out now.
Wish He Was Here. And Aminals. Animals. Yeah. I could have gone too with Wish You Were Here Through the Wall,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
get my BC card revoked.
What-
Say
what-
that The Wall is a classic album, but
Why didn't you show Amagama?
Because it's
Yeah,
got the
I
best
could.
song on it.
I could, Pink Floyd's another one of those bands. It's like, yeah, you could pick like their early stuff, like More, and then Adam Hart Mother, throw Amagama in there as well. Or I could have gone metal, Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here. I mean, there's a lot of wiggle room on either side of that trilogy right there. But I gotta say, those three right there are as good as it gets for the 70s. So
Totally agree. 100%.
Yeah,
Great choices.
masterpieces of albums. Some of the greatest albums ever made.
wow, Skinny Puppy. That's a blast from the past.
Trevor's just trying to sound cool right now.
He is cool.
Trevor is cool. Trevor's cooler than I'll ever be. I'm just
He
gonna
is cool. He wears pretty cool shirts to parties. So
Philippines, you got a Dark Side of the Moon from the Philippines.
Cool.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Pink Floyd, yeah, I love that Pink Floyd at Pompeii movie. That's like one of my favorite concert films, even though there's no audience there, but just the whole ambiance of that concert film is very cool. And that's when they were really a band before they started getting into, Roger Waters and David Gilmour kind of dominating. But
those two guys, I swear.
How is the new David Gilmour album?
I love it. It's great. His daughter, well, the only track I'm lukewarm about is the one that his daughter sings on. She sings on one of the which is like fine. She's got a good voice, but it's really like I loved On an Island. I thought that was a great solo album, but the most recent one is excellent. I love it. I was like, anytime you buy a David Gilmour album, I'm like, we'll see. But I have to say, I walked away very impressed with it. I think it's great.
Is it as good as Quadrophenia?
No, I mean, come on. No. Get out of here. Is anything as good as Quadro? There's no such thing.
Well, that remark was for Aaron. So
yeah, Alex, I didn't say I didn't like it, but it's just in terms of, I don't know, a David Gilmour album. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, because really, am I going to say his daughter can't sing on an album when you had Roy Harper singing on Have a Cigar? So it's not like they violated some Pink Floyd purity thing with having his daughter. She's got a fine voice. She's kind of like a Norah Jones style, voice and all that. So I didn't say, I'm going to go on there. I did not say I don't like that song, but, just in terms of, I just like David Gilmour. David Gilmour's voice is great. It's aging. It's a little bit more withered, but still. Why do I hate? Listen, his daughter is fine. I'm sure she's very good looking. I don't know. Look, okay, I'm going to stop.
Alex, don't get Jeff all fired up.
Now, all right. Okay. Never. Let's roll back the tape. I never said I do not like David Gilmour's daughter's voice, or I do not like. And I know Alex is fucking with me right now, so I'm taking the bait. I know. But all I'm saying, okay, if Roger Waters' daughter sang on his album, it's very likely that might be my least favorite track.
So
let's not make this a referendum. Jeff does not like female singers. Okay, let's not turn this into something it's not.
What if she came out with a solo record?
I would not buy it.
No. Well, I seem to remember a conversation we had about Joni Mitchell where you referred to as a horse face.
Wow, that's sexist.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, did you know Joni Mitchell is on the Notorious Bird Brothers album?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. You've got, obviously,
Well, Jeff,
yeah. All right.
Chris just showed naked pictures of her not long ago.
No, I'm just going to
I
say,
did.
you've got Roger McGuinn. You've got Michael Clark. You've got there's 4 photographs on there, and she's on the cover along with Michael Clark and Roger McGuinn and Chris Hillman, and you've got Joni Mitchell on the cover of the Notorious Bird Brothers album. I bet you didn't know that.
I didn't. I
You
haven't.
don't even have to fucking pull it. All right, you're gonna make me pull it out now. I will. I
Nobody
will
wants to
pull
see
it
you
out
pull
now.
it out.
God damn it!
All right. Well, while Jeff is pulling that out, that didn't sound good.
It's Aaron's, right?
Yeah, Aaron.
Aaron, go ahead. This might take Jeff a while.
I'm up, really?
No, stop it. Stop it. Okay. First of all, here it is. Okay. Here it is. Notorious. I don't know. Is this even showing up? You've
All I
got
see is writing.
Joni Mitchell. Joni Mitchell's right here.
So wait, is that the deluxe version of that CD?
No, it's just a regular, like a remastered CD or whatever. But Joni Mitchell is right over here.
Dude, that's a horse.
Is Joni
I
Mitchell?
rest my case. I rest my case.
That's not nice.
No.
All right. It's not nice, but I'm not a nice guy. Okay. There we go. Okay, Alex, stop it. Stop it. All right.
All right. I think, Aaron, you should go before this conversation goes any further.
It's getting totally out of hand.
Okay.
You know?
Now I've got all these picks here. There's so many, but I'm just Jeff changed the rules on me, so I got to go with ones that everyone thinks are classics, not just me. Because otherwise, it's all Caius and Clutch and that nobody knows. So I'm gonna have to go with this, and I hope I'm not stealing someone's pick because I have a feeling I might be. And these might be my 3 favorite albums by this band, even though I love all of them. But I'm gonna go with starting with Highway to Hell, right into Back in Black, and maybe my favorite of the 3. For those about to rock, we salute you. So underrated. This song, every song I love on this. Night of the Long Knives is so underrated. COD and Evil Walks. This album doesn't get any recognition. Well, it does because it's a classic. But then you got, Back in Black, which was my drinking childhood, all rolled into an album. And Highway to Hell. I love all the Bon Scott stuff more, but that trilogy there is kind of my favorite. It's just right in the middle. And I could have went with all Bon Scott, or I could have went with, the just right after that, Flick of the Switch and those, but it's just that these are just so classic, and every song on all 3 of them is great. So I'm going with the masses on this.
Yeah, are you a
Spector?
And I don't remember because we did an AC/DC video, Aaron. Are you a Bon Scott guy or are you a Michael? Or are you a?
I like them both, but Bon Scott I like better. But just something about those 3 albums just are so killer all the way through. I just had to pick that little section, even though I do like Bon Scott better. And my favorite album by them is actually the Australian version of High Voltage, which is totally different than the American version. I love Flick of the Switch.
Which is a great album. Don't be ashamed to stand up.
Flick of the Switch.
Yeah.
I love.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
God, yeah.
Yeah,
But
awesome.
if we're talking about classics, you said we had to be classics that everyone thinks are. That's why I picked those 3.
Oh, we got a friend from Germany joining us on the chat.
Awesome.
The German band here, it was that close. To
Guten
picking a German
Tag.
band here. So maybe
Aaron, what do you think of those 50th anniversary AC/DC reissues?
they're amazing. They sound great. And I love the gold. Looks really cool. The gold vinyl. I'm I don't usually care about colored vinyl, but they look really cool and they sound amazing. I'm really impressed with them actually.
Yeah, I only need a handful of albums from AC/DC, and I was thinking that's what I'll do is just grab the gold editions. They look really cool.
Yeah, they sound great. That's the thing that's the most important to me is they have really good quality sound on them. So I was really impressed. I didn't know. I went into them thinking I didn't know, and I ended up buying like all of them because I like them so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, Who Made Who is great on the gold too.
I love that album.
Yep.
All right. Fantastic picks. This next band shouldn't surprise any of you. For me, it was just a matter of which 3 albums that I picked. And I kind of went along more with the thinking of what other people might possibly pick for the 3, although I do love them. I'd probably agree with this too, but I'm going with the Ramones. I'm starting with their second album, Leave Home, which then went to Rocket to Russia. and then of course Road to Ruin. All of these show some sort of different progression from the albums before them. This is their second album, and it's like actually has faster songs than what their debut did. Here you have almost some kind of like surf music added into the mix, a little more humor even. And then here you actually have a little more melody. You've got a couple of guitar solos, God forbid, in this. They show some of their early influences by doing like a remake of Needles and Pins, which they do a fantastic job of. But just starting out with the song, I Just Want to Have Something to Do, is kind of a different style a little bit. You could see, where they were progressing a little bit. And it's not a hit, but there's a song on here that Dee Dee Ramone wrote. It's the last song on here called It's a Long Way Back. It's just repetitive. It goes, it's a long way back to Germany,
Yeah.
But the music on it, it's just one of those songs that is so addicted to me. I just freaking love it every time I play it. And these albums to me are as classic as anything. So the Ramones, that's my next pick.
Thank you for showing Ramones, and Road to Ruin is my favorite. It's
Mine
got
too.
I love the tune Questioningly.
Yeah.
That's such an awesome song.
I wanted everything.
Yeah. All right. Great picks, Gary.
Thank you.
Is it my turn?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to get heavy on you.
Yes.
Yeah. and I'm going to show one of the big four. So here we go. I'm going to show Slayer. And I'm going Rain and Blood with, of course, Angel of Death on it. My favorite Slayer record, South of Heaven. So good. They do a cover of Judas Priest, Dissident Aggressor. And then The Beast, Seasons in the Abyss, with the classic War Ensemble. And also Spirit in Black, such an evil tune. And Dead Skin Mask, which I believe is about Ed Gein. So you've got three classic thrash albums by the mighty Slayer.
Love it. Yeah,
Nice.
I mean, all masterpieces. Love it, dude. I actually am picking a big four artist too, and I almost went with Anthrax. I wanted to show Anthrax, but I thought about what Metallica has meant to heavy music. And to give you an example, Kill 'Em All is 3 times platinum. Megadeth's best-selling album is Countdown to Extinction, which is 2 times platinum.
Yeah.
Ride the Lightning is 6 times platinum. Master of Puppets is 6 times platinum. These 3 albums completely changed music. When I got into Master of Puppets, hardly anybody in my school knew who they were. Even the metalheads. They were like, who is that? I remember when the video for One dropped and all these people got into Metallica, and these albums started to sell like crazy because people realized how fantastic they were. Believe it or not, a lot of people said that Metallica sold out with the Black Album. When Ride the Lightning came out, they were hearing the same shit because when they had Fade to Black on it, many fans jumped ship and said they sold out. Back then, a lot of metalheads were, how fast can you play? How heavy is the music? Metallica, they didn't give a fuck. And that's what made them so fantastic. And even though during this time period, Anthrax, I would have told you, was my favorite band. And to a certain extent, they still are one of my favorite bands. I wanted to give props to Metallica because now they're seen as this giant juggernaut, but there was a point where these albums nobody knew, and now they're all, platinum sellers and some of the biggest selling metal albums of all time. So I went with the first three Metallica.
Yeah, Ride the Lightning is my favorite out of those three, but they're all classics. And every once in a while, I love to go onto YouTube and watch early videos of them in concert back in the day. You watch James Hetfield back then, there was not a better frontman, a better rhythm guitarist. That man could frickin' thrash. Like, you got to go back and not you guys, because I know you watched them. And people got to go back and watch those early live videos of Metallica.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wore the DVD, not the DVD, the VHS tape of Cliff 'Em All Out when I got that. Watched that so much.
Oh yeah, especially that Day at the Green where Cliff's going off.
Yep.
Yeah, just incredible. Yeah, I mean, people. I think that it's fashionable to put down Metallica.
I had those pre-picked too.
Yeah.
Well, it's also fashionable to put down Lars, and
He's amazing.
Yeah.
And you know what? Lars has a style, and that's what's cool about him. Like, it's not like it's going to be perfect all the time, but I feel like he's got a style, and it's I don't know, like him or not, I feel like he's a great drummer.
He's the Ringo Starr of heavy metal because he has this unique style that they would not sound the same if he wasn't there, and people don't realize how important that is. You take his drumming and change it to a normal drum patterns, they don't even sound like the same songs, much in the way that Ringo with the Beatles did, where people say he's not good, but he has such a distinct style and added a different layer to their sound, which made them so unique, and it's what makes them so great, I think, was the drumming.
Yeah.
Hey, Bobby.
Well, he also seems to take a lot of shit because, they want to say how he doesn't hit the drums hard enough and stuff. Like that's the most important thing about being a drummer or something. So ridiculous. But the thing is, you also got to figure he's not a young man anymore, and to play that style of music, he's got to adapt somewhat. And you throw in his age and how he's playing, I think he's still doing a fantastic job at it.
My problem with Lars is I think it's getting to his head now, all the negative stuff, and I feel like I wish he didn't spend so much time trying to get the perfect drum sound and the perfect freaking fills and this and that. Like Aaron was saying, just play the freaking drums. Like, you've got this unique style. Maybe it's not going to be totally perfect. Maybe your fills aren't going to be like Dave Lombardo or something like that, but just freaking play like you play.
Yeah.
Well, Alex weighs in on. Finally, he's getting on my fucking back about the female vocalist thing. Talking about Lars and his drumming here. The leader of the band in the early days. Do you think
definitely. In the 80s, everybody loved Lars.
Do you think it was the Saint Anger thing that turned a lot of people against Lars?
That and Napster, even though he was 100% right on Napster.
Yeah.
That really killed him.
The other thing, too, is you look at those early photos of Metallica, at least one of the guys is always wearing a Misfits t-shirt. And Metallica probably was one of the number one reasons the Misfits are as big as they are. I mean, if it wasn't Cliff wearing a shirt, then Kirk was or James was, and they'd be sporting the Sam Hain shirt. So they definitely brought notoriety to those guys.
I completely agree. Up into the mid 90s, they were still wearing Danzig shirts. They fully supported Glenn Danzig throughout his whole career. So
yeah.
He sang on one of the songs on the first Danzig record too.
He did. Possession.
Yep.
Nice. Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, James Hetfield did.
That's a great point, Trevor, though, because, I mean, how many people thought thrash bands would still be around 40 years later, still popular, still putting out records, still being...
Well, and listen, what's crazy is next month I'm going to see Testament, Possessed, and Creator live.
Awesome.
So that just goes to show you thrash is not dead.
Now, and Charlie Benanti said the other day that the new Anthrax songs might be the best songs they've ever written. So
Wow.
I'm definitely interested in hearing it, because they're making some great albums.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing because I think worship music is right up there with their old stuff to me. I love worship music.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, is it me?
It's
Yeah.
you, bro.
All right.
The last three, right? Or no, Jeff's good. Sick.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're talking about progressive rock. One of the cornerstones of the progressive rock era is going to be Yes. Well, I got the order wrong. Sorry. Their debut album, the Yes album. Shit. Their second album, I know it's not already. I know anybody was. No, it's not. They had two. I fucking know. Okay.
You forgot about Time and a Word.
Time and a Word in the first, just the Yes. I'm getting off topic here. All right. I run a 3, Fragile, and then the undisputed greatest progressive rock album of all time. Close to the edge. Has there ever been, will there ever be a better run of 3 than those Yes albums right there?
Well, I don't know. I would have shown Tormato.
Yeah, you would. Tormato.
No, you wouldn't, you big turd.
One of the naked guy on the cover. What was
Going for the one. Yeah, going
for the one.
No, but those are classics. And like you said, Jeff, like all kidding aside, Close to the Edge is got to be top 3 progressive albums of all time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I almost went for those 3.
Stop it already. Okay. I'm going to start getting a reputation around the VC as a guy who hates women, and that is not in any way accurate. Alex. Look.
Notice my picks have had men and women.
All right. Okay. There we go. All right. Can we just?
Who's turn?
Are we still?
Aaron.
I'm up. Well, since you guys showed those thrash ones, and I had some Anthrax picked out. I had Metallica.
Yeah.
But this band doesn't get the credit they deserve. I think they're one of my 4 favorite thrash bands of all time, and they were just kids when they started. Starting with the Ultraviolence from Death Angel, going into Frolic Through the Park,
Cold Gin.
and Act 3. I'll put these 3 albums up against anyone else's in the thrash genre. They're absolute masterpieces, every one of them. Mark Ostergaida is a great vocalist. He is like the Lane Staley, Chris Cornell of thrash singers. You got Mark Ostergaida and Joey Belladonna, where they had the voices that made them just so different. Even on this one, they even have stuff like A Room with a View and Veil of Deception, where it's just kind of mellower, but really great singing. This is my favorite Death Angel, Act 3. But the Ultraviolence, they were like 15, 16 years old when they put this absolute masterpiece of an album out.
That's great.
Mystery of Pain, one of the greatest riffs in thrash ever. And then, of course, this one with Bored. And they even did Cold Gin from Kiss on here. And they do it really well. Just 3 amazingly great thrash albums. Masterpieces, all 3. I would put those against anyone else's, even though it's hard to beat the Metallica and the Anthrax and the Megadeth records, but I think Death Angel's just as good and don't get any recognition.
I love Death Angel. Frolic Through the Park is my favorite of those, but
That's where I first discovered them. But Act 3 is the one that got me. Seemingly in this time, just going into that one, it's just amazing.
Aaron, did you hear that Mark is the singer of the Kerry King solo album?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, he does a fantastic job on that album. It really has like a Death Angel feel.
He's a great singer, and Rob Cavastani, the guitarist for Death Angel, is amazing. Andy Gallion, the drummer on those 3 albums, he doesn't play with them anymore. They got in a tour bus accident after Act 3 on the tour for that, so they disbanded for a while. And then he kind of came back a little, but he had a bunch of burns, and he just never they got, you know, that original band was just really good.
Totally. Great pick,
Great.
dude.
Great pick,
Awesome.
Aaron.
Did you know the difference between Dark Angel and Death Angel, Aaron?
Oh yeah, I got a couple Dark Angel albums. They're good, but Death Angel to me is a whole nother level. They're just, the musicianship is just top notch. And like I said, they were kids when they put out their first 2 records. I don't think one of them might have been at 18 during Frolic Through the Park.
Yeah.
But on Ultraviolence, they were all underage kids, and it's just amazing how great it is.
And don't forget about the band Angel.
I'll take that.
They're
Right.
white hot.
Right.
Hey, here's a comment on something that I said that doesn't involve misogyny, so I want to show that. Till this day, I don't get Tales from Topographic Oceans. For me, it's boring. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, we call it self-indulgent. I think I like the first 2 sides of Tales for Topographic Ocean, and then for me, it just kind of like, yeah, it definitely did not need to be a double album. I think
No,
it's
yeah, that's
bloated.
the problem with it. It's a double album. They should
Yeah.
have condensed it, like you know, a majority of double albums. If they would have condensed them, they would have been a fantastic album. But, you know,
Yeah, and that's a great example of it. It's like, all right, we didn't need 4 sides of this.
right, exactly.
Well, then you gotta talk about Relayer too. Relayer is an awesome album.
I like Relayer.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Giant steps are what you take walking on the moon. I'm going with the Police. Now, this was really hard for me because I hated to leave off the debut. You know, I'm like, but I had to have album number 3 there. So starting off with Regata de Blanc, of course, Zenyatta Mendata, and then Ghost in the Machine. Ghost in the Machine is the reason why I had to start here and not with the debut, because this has to be there in my ring of 3. I mean, honestly, I could have taken any 3 in a row. They didn't have that many albums, right? And they're all fantastic. But, you know, I mean, these are probably my favorite 2 albums by the Police. I don't know, the debut. But I really love this album, too. Maybe get rid of an instrumental. But I love these albums, and this is just such a great string of records. They hold up today. They're going to hold up forever. I love them. I love the sound of it. I love Stuart Copeland so much on these records. Everything he does on here is fantastic. So that's my final pick of the evening is the Police.
That's the exact same 3 I had picked of them.
Awesome.
Yeah, if I had to pick 3 Police, like a run of 3 for the Police, it would have been those exact ones. And I like Synchronicity. I like the debut, but not anywhere near as much as I like Regata, Zenyatta, and Ghost in the Machine.
Yeah, those are just so cool. They're just so cool, man.
Zenyatta Mandata is my favorite. I love that one. But I like Ghost in the Machine's close.
Well, and the reason I don't like Synchronicity is because I think, is it Andy Summers' girlfriend is on the cover or his wife's on the cover? And like, I'm not about having chicks on album covers. Nothing to do with chicks. You know, they don't belong in music. They don't belong, you know.
I'm all about the chicks on the album covers.
Ghost in the Machine. Yes, Bobby. Ghost in the Machine is the greatest Police album. In fact, it's one of my favorite albums of the 1980s. Thank you, Bobby.
Yep.
Agreed.
I'll disagree with that, but just barely, because I think it's really close to me.
Yeah, I know you're a Zenyatta guy, but like Zenyatta, Ghost in the Machine.
Yeah, they're both great.
Zenyatta was the first Police album I ever bought, and because whatever, I won't go.
I
in.
like the instrumentals a lot on that. That's one of the reasons.
Yeah, I love that.
Behind My Camel's great. I love that.
Yeah. All right, who's next?
Chris.
All right, so for my last pick, I'm gonna get a little artsy on you, and yeah, we'll see. I'm still waiting for this band to come out with their new album. I've been waiting for a while, and I heard that it might be coming out in November, and I'm talking about The Cure. And The Cure are one of my favorite bands. I know Jeff really likes The Cure. I know Josh does. I'm going with probably obvious Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me with maybe one of the best pop tunes of the 80s with Just Like Heaven and their greatest hits album. Well, not greatest hits album, but so many hits on the album. Disintegration with one of my favorite tunes, Pictures of You. And then Wish, which has one of my favorite deep cuts by them called A Letter to Elise, which is a killer tune. And
They played that in concert when I saw them, by the way.
what'd you say?
They played that in concert when I saw them.
Awesome. Yeah, I've never seen them live. And like I said, I'm still waiting for that new album to come out. What I love about all three of these records, well, what I love about The Cure is that The Cure could freaking rock out. But then they also had like the quirky pop tunes. But then they could get so depressive and gothic. Like they were just all over the place. And I don't know. I had to show The Cure tonight.
Why do you hate the Head on the Door so much?
I don't. I just love these albums better.
I love the Head on the Door. And that, Jeff, my son bought that the other day, which is, it's just a masterpiece. But you're right, Chris. I love those three albums. And you know how I feel about the
Doesn't Head on the Door have that tune like Kyoto or whatever?
Yeah, Kyoto song. Hey, Trevor, thanks for coming by, dropping by. Good to see you.
I mean, I thought their last couple albums were good as well. I'm trying to remember Dream 13 or whatever that last album was called. I forget, but I'm just can't wait for the new album to come out. And I don't know why Robert Smith hasn't pulled the trigger yet.
Well, they're dropping all these hints this week on Instagram. Everybody thinks it's coming very, very soon. I wouldn't be surprised if we woke up tomorrow and it was there digitally. But who knows? We'll have to cross that bridge. Great pick, Chris.
Thanks. Well,
So-
I figured it kind of went along with what Jeff was saying because Robert Smith can look like a girl sometimes. So
Yeah,
He definitely looks like an old woman.
yeah,
definitely. Well, my next pick, they only had 4 albums, so it was pretty easy to pick 3 of them. And they're just a fantastic band that I loved in the 80s. I love today. Chris made a joke once, and he goes, man, every time I walk into Purchase Street Records, they're playing Cinderella. And that's because my brother Roger from All Sinners loves Cinderella. And as most of us hard rockers from the 80s do, all 3 of these albums were certified platinum. And I think the first album, the second album were certified double platinum. You know, the great thing is that this band had huge success, and the albums, you know, are still recognized as great albums today. I do think a lot of people that don't even like the hair metal genre recognize these as really great songwriting. Tom Kiefer has that grizzled voice, which is, you guys know, I love that. I love the rough voices like Tom Waits. And so, yeah, just a fantastic 3 run of albums. I do love Still Climbing, but these 3 are obviously their best.
I love, well, Night Songs is my favorite, but I love how it opens up with Night Songs, and it's just that dinging of the bell, like it's just so heavy.
Yeah.
And I remember the video for Nobody's Fool with like the leaves falling down. Like it was just such a cool band.
Cool band, definitely.
Yep. Totally agree.
Love them, but I think
Really
the first
curious
one's way
too.
better than their next 2, but they're all good.
Yeah, I would agree.
Night Songs by far is the best, but
The
they're all
Night
good.
Song, easily my favorite.
Yeah, those early Cure albums set the stage, I think, even though it took them a while to get around to Disintegration. But you can hear a lot of Disintegration in those early Cure albums, like 17 Seconds, Faith, Pornography. All of those are classics. That's a great run of 3.
Yeah.
Love Cinderella. Yeah, absolutely.
I was lucky I got to see them on a Night Songs tour, and they were great. They were heavier live when I saw them.
Yeah. I've seen it a couple times.
Me too.
That
Hey,
song,
Jeff.
Push is great.
Yep. They played every song on the album except for Hell on Wheels when I saw them.
Wow, that's awesome. And Jeff, I know you just mentioned The Cure Pornography. I just got that album, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's great. I love that one. It's really like before Disintegration, that was like the closest thing that they released that sounded like that. With the Hanging Garden, and I love 100 Days. It's such a great album.
Doesn't that have Figurehead on it too?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great record. Well, my last one, this would have been on everyone's list, but they graciously did not show it because they knew I wanted to show it. But of course, I got to go with Rubber Soul, Revolver, and Sgt. Pepper. I mean, what a great, and the Beatles are another band where you could easily pick any 3 run of albums. I could have picked Sgt. Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour, the White Album, or the White Album, Abbey Road, Let It Bleed, or, Beatles for Sale, Help, any of the, but I mean, for me, like the Beatles, they, at the time when they released those albums, I mean, they really were the band that was trailblazing, and they were experimenting. And it's really easy to, in hindsight, forget how innovative these albums were at the time, because everything that's come after these records owes a great debt of gratitude to Rubber Soul, Revolver, and Sgt. Pepper. But, waiting for the next Beatle album, it was really like, okay, what direction is music going in now?
Mhm.
And what cool effects are there going to be? And then the magnificent songwriting. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I talk about the Beatles all the time, and you guys know I love the Beatles, but my favorite 3, I don't, they're not even my favorite 3 Beatle albums is a thing, but there's no denying that those are great, classic, influential albums. Rubber Soul is a masterpiece. Revolver is a masterpiece. Sgt. Pepper's a masterpiece. And none of those are my favorite Beatle albums either. That's like the thing. That's how great they were that period of time.
That's why I with those 3, but yours are, you can't argue with yours. But White Album's my favorite, then Abbey Road, then Magical Mystery Tour. But I mean, Revolver, Rubber Soul, Sgt. Pepper, any of those, Let It Be, they're all just phenomenal.
And Jeff, I think you hit the nail on the head. They were some of the most influential albums of all time. They were setting the trend. They weren't following any trends. People were trying to catch up to them. And that was the thing about those 3 albums in particular. They're game changers. And just like you did with Pink Floyd. I mean, 3 albums that totally changed the landscape of music. So.
Yeah.
I mean, they were really pushing the envelope. I mean, think about it. Like, what other album at the time that Revolver came out had an Indian raga on it, like Love You Too? I mean, that was just like, what?
Yeah.
Or Eleanor Rigby. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, it was just, and Tomorrow Never Knows with the tape loops and everything was just like, nobody was doing that at the time. And Sgt. Pepper is just a classic, and people are quick to say it's overrated. It's not, if you take it in the context of the times, it's not overrated, but
you could argue the first 3 songs on Sgt. Pepper are like the best 3 in a row they did on any album too.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm with you, Aaron. Like, my favorites are always going to be Abbey Road and the White Album.
Yeah.
But in terms of like 3 solid albums that help to, chart the course of 60s music,
The cool thing about Rubber Soul is that the UK and the American are so different. It's almost like they were different influences just from that one record.
Yeah, and I've always been a bigger fan of the US version of Rubber Soul, just because that's what I grew up on. But I think it works really well as a folk rock album. And I feel like the songs that they left off that album, it's almost like addition by subtraction, because I feel like those always, and I loved the Yesterday and Today album, but I felt that works so much better as like just strictly a rock album, whereas Rubber Soul was more kind of a folky, acoustic, organic kind of an album. And then when you take away If I Needed Someone, Nowhere Man, Drive My Car, I feel like it made Rubber Soul stronger. But I still love Yesterday and Today. I love the way that you've got all those like electric songs on one collection there.
Kind of crazy how they did that. So different, the American and UK.
Yeah, it really changed the whole texture of that album when you got rid of those. What Goes On does not belong on Rubber Soul. I'm sorry. It stands out like a sore thumb. I mean, I like the song, but it doesn't, for me, it doesn't fit. But whatever, that's just my own personal opinion. So
They just showed this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those first three Danzig are classic.
Yeah, I almost did. Danzig, Judas Priest. There were so many bands. Iron Maiden.
I'm surprised you didn't show the Doors, Jeff.
well, I thought about it, but to me, there's always going to, that middle, Waiting for the Sun and Soft Parade.
Yeah.
I just stopped short of calling them classics just because
That Van
there's no
Halen.
denying.
I
Yeah.
think too, Aaron.
Yeah. I really thought about that, but I'm like, well, is Waiting for the Sun on the same level as the first album in Strange Days? And is Soft Parade on the same level as Morrison Hotel and LA Woman? Just for me. But,
Yeah.
you could definitely make a case for the Doors. Absolutely. Same for Cream. Yeah, Fresh Cream, Disraeli Gears, and Wheels of Fire. Actually, that was under consideration for me because those are all great albums.
So Gary, you and I could have pulled out a few Patti Loveless albums.
Could have.
Yeah.
Or
Look at me,
Sylvia.
it's like, I have them on CD, not album.
I was surprised you didn't show Sylvia, Chris.
Well, it was so hard to pick. If we were talking about a run of 6 albums,
Right.
Chris, you could
Rod,
have
Rod McEwen. Where's
Yeah.
Rod? When was the last time you showed a Rod McEwen album, Chris?
I know I gotta get
show
back to
any
that.
Rod McEwen, and we would have had to take your word for it.
Yeah.
You're the torturer for Rod McEwen. And when's the last time you did a Rod McEwen video? Not to
I know.
shame you.
I
Don't
think
you
I'm
like
due,
him anymore?
I think I'm due for a Rod McEwen video soon.
Have you fallen out of love with Rod?
No, I've got still a bunch of his stuff. I just, I think things ebb and flow, so I'm gonna have to get back into the Rod thing again.
Do it.
Do your rod. Show your rod.
Aaron, all those albums you're showing I love.
Sorry, I stopped myself.
All right. Well, this was a fun video. Thank you, everybody all 4 people who joined us on this live stream.
Yeah, we didn't advertise it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And we'll be back next week. Absolutely. Maybe we'll even have Brandon with us. He's been a little under the weather, so he could not
I'm gonna
join.
have to take next week and the week after off because my wife's having surgery next Thursday. So
Yeah. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, everybody who showed up.
Still
Yeah.
here.
Good luck to your wife, Aaron.
well, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next week,
Yeah.
next Thursday. So I've been real busy getting ready. Good to see everyone.